Hello, welcome to this video about the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Today we will see verse 76, teaching a practice of awakening that is not directly connected with the previous ones, a practice of vision, that is based on the visions of light that you see, for example, when you fixate on a powerful source of light, and then you close your eyes and you see an imprint of that light. And while that imprint disappears, fades away slowly, your attention that is focused on that imprint slowly disappears, meaning that it opens up in silence. So this practice, and we have seen already several of them a while before, that sort of practice is a light equivalent, a luminous equivalent of the practice of Om. Okay, when you recite Om, your attention rides on the Om and is brought in silence. Here it is the same thing, but with light. Your attention rides, as it were, that luminous shape with closed eyes or even with open eyes while gazing at a wall, for example. And when that form of color, pulsating colors, fades away, your attention is brought back to more and more subtle states of herself. So let's read first the Sanskrit. Verse 76. Om tejasā sūryadīpāder ākāśe śabalīkṛte dṛṣṭir niveśyā tatraiva svātmarūpam prakāśate. So, niveśyā, having fixated, dṛṣṭir, one's gaze, on a space, ākāśe, śabalīkṛte, which is made multicolored, karburibhūte, so like inlaid patterns, karburikṛte. Sūryadīpāder, tejasā, because of the light of the sun, of a lamp, etc. Like a lamp shining on a wall, it makes designs, okay? So you put your gaze, you fixate your gaze on those designs, on a wall, on the ground, in the sky itself. Tatraiva, and there itself, in that very place, svātmarūpam, the shape of one's own self, prakāśate, shines, always that shining, because consciousness, awareness is light. Svātmarūpam prakāśate. So oneself, one's own self will shine. So we sit comfortably somewhere, we fix our gaze on a place where we see those lights, or even in the sky, and there the self manifests. So that seems a little bit esoteric, and I think it is, But in fact, it is a topic that comes back again and again in Kaula teachings. You have a quiet, detailed description of it in the Malini Vijayottara Tantra, that is the highest, the most quintessential tantra of the Trika tradition, the supreme tradition, teaching many yogic practices, yogic contemplations, dharana, the same word that the commentator uses to name those verses of the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And they describe here not necessarily that you fixate your gaze on a wall, but rather ākāśe, in space, in the sky illuminated by a lamp, supposedly in the night, and or by the sun, supposedly during the day. When you fixate the sun, a little below the sun, not the sun itself, of course, but below the sun, you can see designs made by the light of the sun shining through the parts around the eyes, different parts, the hairs, the skin. And like that, in the sky, you see those little globules that are in the eye, those little shapes that you can see sometimes. They are described as fleas or something, and like flying in the sky, moving with the gaze. And you can see orbs of light, of multicolored lights, like rainbows. And in those traditions, in the Kaula teachings, it is said that when you fixate on those kind of shapes, those designs develop somehow and become more and more complex, so that in the end you will see the yoginis, the feminine deities, and the siddhas, the male deities. And you will come to know everything. So, in fact, it is possible with both the light of the sun and the light of the moon. And indeed, the commentator quotes Patanjali, both the Shiva Sutras that teach a fixation on the sun and on the moon. Not the sun and not the moon, in fact, but the light of them. So it says, Bhuvnagyanam Surye Samyamat. By perfect concentration on the sun comes the knowledge of the worlds. And Chandre Tara Vyuhagyanam, and by perfect fixation on the moon comes a knowledge of all the stars, starting with the North Pole. I think Tara is the North Pole. And the commentator distinguishes that practice from the practice of simply throwing one's gaze on a pure empty sky, empty space, or on an open landscape that has been described before and that will be described again after. Agree. Ākāśam vimalam pashyan, contemplating a pure space. Dṛṣṭir nirantaram kritva, having made the gaze fixed, not moving, nirantaram, without blinking the eyelids. So here the practice again is quite simple. In fact, once we move through all the esoteric jargon, we sit comfortably, and just like for the Shiva meditation, we gaze with open eyes, with wide open eyes, as wide as possible, and shapes, lights appear, even in the empty, pure blue sky, even fixating any form, sort of sky or white wall, things will appear that are called today anti-optical phenomena, because they come from the inside of the eye, from the retina, etc. And when you fixate your gaze and your attention there, awareness opens up. So there is nothing to explain, in fact, it's just to experiment for oneself. So those visions of light develop, and at the same time, awareness opens up. So this is in fact a very powerful practice. And in fact, it is a variation of the practice of gazing upon space, or gazing up into wide open space. So that's it for today. The commentators do not have much more to tell us for this time. And that's all for today. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice equinox festival if you have one, if you celebrate. Today the night and the day are in balance, so it is the equinox, Vishwavat in Sanskrit. It is a very, very sacred time according to the Hindu calendar, the Panchang. And it is said that whatever spiritual practice is done at that time is many-fold more powerful than any other time. So anyway, it's a moment of in-between. Those in-between that are so much stressed in the tantric yoga teachings. The in-between, the out-breath and the in-breath, in between the night and day, in between that thought and the next thought, in between everything, in between there is and there is not. So equinox is really a very, very special time. So I wish you a very special time today. See you for the next video.